Welcome everyone to our VIP meet and greet. My name is Diaz, and I am honored to introduce today's special guest, Jim Axelrod. He's the Chief Investigative and Senior National Correspondent for CBS News.
Let me just start out by saying a little bit about what I do. So I've been with CBS News for 26 years, worked all over, started in Miami, moved to Dallas, went to New York, down to Washington, back to New York, in between Afghanistan, Iraq. When I traveled at the White House with the president, we went everywhere. And as I always tell people, it's, the greatest job in the world. I mean, essentially, I'm paid to tell stories. Among the many things that I've been able and fortunate enough to be exposed to is the importance of public speaking, of communicating the ideas you have in a public setting. There are certain things we can do to establish ourselves as communications professionals and make us more effective at transmitting what's in our heads or what's in our hearts to the public in a way that is accessible for them, because that's always the key word, accessibility. I would just like to say to you that at the end of the day, there's really no magic dust that you need to sprinkle on yourself in terms of becoming a more effective public speaker or communicator. Like everything else in life, the skill is honed through repetition. I always say repetition is the mother of all skill. You want to do something well, do it 10,000 times. I don't care if you're taking snaps on a football field, or if you are loading missiles, or if you're delivering a live shot, or if you're talking to a group and presenting your idea. You do something over and over and over, you will find out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how to become more comfortable doing whatever it is you're doing. So I guess the first thing I want you to understand is that you can all be effective communicators and effective public speakers, but you need to keep a couple of thoughts in mind. Practice, 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 and always remember, if I can leave you with one thought, when you are writing up what it is you're going to say, that is where the magic happens. So much more so than who you are in front of an audience, and I'm going to command this one's attention, and I'm going to knock it out of the park to the back row. All this stuff's important in terms of how you present, but what you present is actually the dirty little secret of how you get an audience to eat out of your hand, no matter what you're doing. Are you writing in simple, accessible language? I used to anchor the CBS Saturday Evening News. I had two rules for the people that were writing stories. Two words I never wanted to hear. Don't ever bring me a piece of copy that says blaze. You know why? Because the only people I've ever heard describe a fire as a blaze are newscasters. I've never called home and said, honey, I'm late. There's a 5-alarm blaze. I've said, there's a fire. Okay, so that's an idea of what I'm getting at. Use words people use. Don't use made up words that only exist, whether it's the military or whether it's newscasting. Another word, motorist. Have you ever used the word motorist in a conversation? You've talked about drivers. The driver in the next lane was a complete jerk. He cut me off. The motorist in the next lane was a complete jerk. He cut me off. I don't think so. None of us use that word. So keep in mind the motorist rule when you're writing whatever presentation you're going to make to anybody. Use words that people use. It is a safe place to hide behind complicated multisyllabic words, but talk to people like they talk to you, and you will be more effective getting your ideas across as a communicator. As you first start, take a deep breath. Relax yourself. As public speakers, we control process. We don't control outcome. And there is a significant difference between process and outcome. Process is what you do to prepare. Process is going over your script 50 times. Process is understanding in each sentence what the most important word is, circling it and punching it. That's process. Outcome is somebody walking out of the presentation going, hey, she was terrific, or hey, he was great, or hey, he was lousy, or hey, she's not ready for the big time. You don't control outcome. That's out of your hand. You only control the process of preparation for that public speech?
I think when it comes to public speaking, like what you mentioned earlier, just keep on being repetitive on what you're trying to present to the crowd. And I think what is easier for me is being virtual because I notice I do a lot of hand gestures. So in front of an audience, I notice I get kind of fidgety in a way, like I guess I get nervous, and you can see it with my expressions. But of course, virtually, you can only see face. So I think that's like the positive thing.
Let me just offer up a counter thought. There is nothing wrong with talking with your hands. If that's authentically you, I guess what I'm trying to say to everybody this morning is authenticity is your friend. There's no one way to be an effective public speaker. There is one guiding principle, which is to be authentically you. So if Ricky is going to make a point about something and is using his hands, people get that. All right. Now, you don't want to obviously have some kind of crutch, which is distracting and odd and strange for people to look at. But I talk with my hands, and I can't tell you how many people over my time in broadcasting have said, the hands, don't want to be distracting. I'm like, yeah, I think it makes me an effective public speaker. So thanks, but no thanks as far as your suggestion goes, because I feel that undergirding all effective communicators are the idea that you are listening to someone authentically present their ideas. Everybody is afraid of failing. What I'm saying is find things to double down on about yourself that are authentic, such maybe as if talking with your hands makes you less nervous, then use your hands. Because if you're spending all your energy thinking, okay, got to keep my hands still, then you're not thinking about the words. You want to be connected to your copy. You don't want to just be reading something. That's why you rehearse. You rehearse not just to understand the order of the words. You rehearse to get familiar, get the ideas that you're communicating frontal lobe so that you can be connected to those concepts. So anything that is going to help you naturally create a sense of calm, go to it. Just go to it, because it's going to help the general sense that people have of listening to you.
I do have one other question for you.
Sure,
One
shoot.
thing that I've noticed is if I'm in front of a crowd, like my nerves take over and my leg starts to shake if I'm sitting down. If I'm standing, I do the hand thing. Do you have any suggestions for that? Or do you suggest like just be me if my leg is shaking, just let it shake and focus on what I have to do?
Listen, I've had to stand up literally and ask the president of the United States a question with like a national TV audience watching. And if you don't think your leg's going to shake a little, then like there's got to be some way to process very normal and natural feelings. I will tell you, the 10th time I did it, I was much more comfortable than the first time. Are there things you can do? Yes. You know what I used to do on big nights where I knew there was going to be I made sure I either went running that day, took a yoga class that day, did something physical. There is a chemical component, a neurochemical component to anxiety. Something spikes. Your hand doesn't just start shaking out of nothing. Something's going on biologically in your body. The anxiety is provoking a certain physical response. So go counteract that physical response by producing some endorphins. You run, go run. Bike, go bike. Take a walk in the park. Do something. Breathe deeply. There are physical ways to address what is the most natural and normal set of feelings. And I don't want you feeling bad or in some way defective or this is just something I can't do. I don't buy that.
Going on to my military career, the first thing that happened, of course, being a Ranger, going to a reserve unit, they're expecting me to give, 4, 5, 6 briefs on a drill weekend. I'm the sharp rep, I'm the EO rep. I do suicide prevention briefs. So for me, when I'm already giving a class on, military movements or anything like that, I already have those prepared. When it comes to the on the spot things, I tend to get very emotional in those ones because to me, it's personal. The big thing that I know is that when I prepare for speeches or briefs, that I tend to be more soft-spoken. The short notes for the suicide prevention brief, for example, I had plenty of examples coming into the brief. It was just a matter of the time and effectiveness. And because of how emotional of a connection I had with that presentation. People could see the emotional output that I gave to them.
So Dom's raising a really important point here. Do yourself a favor. Have a pal, someone you know, next time you have public speaking, maybe it'll be taped, maybe it'll be a Zoom and you can record. Go back and watch yourself. Go back, and nobody ever does this. You get done, you're like, oh my God, thank God I'm done. It's finished. I put it out of my head and I'm never going back to that scary place again. Do yourself a favor. Get someone to tape you and make yourself watch it. There is no more efficient way to improve if you sing or dance, or if you're an athlete and you get to see how you perform. You can learn so much by watching later. So don't dismiss and say, thank God that's over with. Try to actually go back and compare how you thought it went to how the tape is telling you it actually went. Because, I mean, look, Dom, you're talking about the most serious stuff there is. You're delivering suicide prevention briefs. Like, you want that to be absolutely 1000% perfect. And I know that's probably not tapeable because that's a very personal situation. But anytime you guys are doing something where it can be taped, tape it and then go and study it, because I think you'll find that remarkably helpful. I always used to say to my producers, good is the enemy of great. And I would say that to them, don't settle. Like, if you have to put the extra hour in and it's going to separate us from good to great, then let's put that hour in. Good is the enemy of great. I want to turn that on its head when it comes to public speaking. Great is the enemy of good. Of course, we all want to be great public speakers, but the road to great passes through good. And so everybody give yourself a break, okay? As long as you are approaching your audience, I've said it several times, with a full heart and a pure intention of communicating, you're going to be great, okay? That's going to take care of itself. But to be good allows you to not worry about being great. That's where all the bad stuff happens, in our expectation and our sense of, oh my God, I got to get over this bar and it's too high and I can't do it. Relax, okay? Just come in to connect with people. And don't be afraid of admitting that you're nervous. It's disarming. The tension, the anxiety, the concern always comes because you're not reaching some expectation of yours. Adjust the expectation and double down on what you know will be an effective way to communicate, which is earnestly, honestly, with great intention. And I think we should all be fine. All right. This has been awesome for me. And so I want to say thank you to each of you all. And I'm wishing everybody the best. And if you ever have any questions, Betty knows where to find me.